Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. It is State Senator Mallory McMorrow coming to you live from what is now a 10 out of 10 room rater, thanks to my husband's lovely office design. You are tuning into our weekly live stream this week with Mallory, which we live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter every week to let you know what is going on in the legislature, what's going on in the state, always sharing some good news from our district, which is the perfect way to get into the weekend. And it is the opportunity for live Q&A. So if you are new to joining our live streams, as you're listening to the discussion, if you've got a question, feel free to jot it down. We ask that if you do have any questions, type them in the comment section. So if you are on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, you can go ahead and type it in. We do ask that you say your name if that is not immediately evident by your username, what city you live in. That way we can prioritize constituent questions if there are a lot of questions, and then go ahead and fire away with your questions. And we will go ahead and get into it right away. It was a pretty light session week, but I did want to touch on a few things that are happening, especially in the wake of my speech discussions about what is happening in state legislatures all around the country and these attacks, particularly on the LGBTQ community. So here in Michigan, there have been bills introduced in multiple hearings on bills really playing into these culture war issues. And there had previously been introduced legislation by Lana Tice to prohibit trans kids from playing on the sports team that matches their gender identity. There were a number of hearings that were held on these bills. And I just want to put this into context really quickly, because here in Michigan, the Michigan High School Athletic Association has long had a process already in place where if you are a transgender student and you want to play on a sports team that matches your gender identity, we have a process. There's a waiver that you can apply for. It has to go through the association. The school is a part of it. The team is a part of it. The parents are a part of it. Everybody is a part of deciding whether to grant this waiver. And over the past 5 years, there have been 9 total students in the state of Michigan who have used this process, and it's gone really well. So I know that I've been talking to a parent of a trans child in our district, who I believe we have a question from this week. I saw in our question form, who has said that this process works really great, and the school has been so supportive, and friends have been so supportive. So it already works. This is addressing an issue that did not exist because we already have a process in place that gives everybody an opportunity to have input. And so the bills didn't move forward. They didn't move out of committee. And even if they did, Gretchen Whitmer, our governor, would very, very likely veto these bills. But this week, we saw that Republicans in the House Appropriations Committee, these are the committees that meet to hash out the budget, put this language into a budget bill. So the House Appropriations Committee advanced a K-12 school aid fund budget late on Wednesday that includes language requiring school districts and intermediate school districts to prohibit quote unquote boys from competing on girls' sports teams. And I tweeted about this. It is just, discrimination does not belong in the state of Michigan, but certainly does not belong in a budget bill. What this would do in effect is scare school districts who would feel like they have to discriminate in order to not risk not receiving the funding that they get in the state budget. So that's really frustrating. So that is something to watch out for, not only on legislation that is going to be introduced, but on what gets added into the budget. This is a critical part of the process of what we do in the legislature, and we will keep you posted on more. So we've had a lot of people over the last week asking us what we can do. How can we get involved? How can we help? Number one, find out who your legislators are at every level of government, from the U.S. Senate to Congress on down. Your state legislature is where a lot of these efforts take place. If it's me, hooray! I'm really, really proud to represent you, and I hope that we are echoing your voice and doing a great job. If it's not me, find out who your state legislator is, find out if they are supporting these efforts, and contact them. Your elected officials work for you. and they need to hear your voice in this process. All right, moving on. Other updates from the Capitol on some bills that were of interest this week. House Bill 4842 reduces the state markup on each bottle of spirits produced by a small distiller that uses at least 40% Michigan grown based distillate in its products between 51 and 65% to 32.5%. That sounds very wonky, but effectively what this does is creates an incentive by reducing the state markup. So this is what kind of the state puts on bottles of liquor. So if you are a local Michigan distiller, we have a few in our district, they're fantastic. If you use more than 40% Michigan grown, Michigan made products in your distilling process, in your product, you could benefit from a reduced state markup. We want to encourage our Michigan distillers and businesses in using Michigan products. It supports our agriculture industry, which is thriving and wonderful here in the state. So that advanced in the Senate. House Bill 5089. This bill provides that Laura shall grant registration as a nurse's aide if a person demonstrates to the department that he or she has completed a nurse's aide training program approved by the department. So this, again, sounds very wonky. What this effectively does is we know that there is a shortage of qualified nursing aides, particularly in-home nursing aides. And Senator Winnie Brinks, who is our Democratic Vice Chair for Health Policy, kind of talked us through this bill. This would allow for people to complete their certification via an online process, and especially given the shortage of qualified nursing aides. This says that Laura shall grant. So they shall grant, must grant the licensure to a nurse's aide who goes through this process versus the requirement that they complete an in-person training. So good news, hoping to expand care and access and making sure that we are removing any hurdles for people who want to get into this very, very necessary line of work. Senate Bill 962, this is pretty straightforward. This would amend the Michigan Limited Liability Company Act. So an LLC, you may have heard about people creating an LLC to include nonprofit corporations. So right now, a lot of people are defined as a person who can form LLCs. Nonprofits were not explicitly included in the past. Now they are with this bill. Okay. Just an additional update on timing. The appropriations committees, which are the committees in both the House and the Senate, are meeting now to hash out what the budget looks like. So, to take everybody back a little bit on how the budget process works, at the start of the year, the governor, the executive branch, introduces his or her budget recommendations. That then comes to the legislature. The legislature takes that. The House and the Senate meet. The approps committees get together. They hash out what basically the response is. So I'm always on the wrong side of the screen. There's the governor's proposal, then there's the legislature proposal, and then those get negotiated, worked out, and that is how we get to the state budget every year for 10 million residents of the state of Michigan. So that is ongoing. There's a really, really phenomenal infographic if you are one of those people who wants to know things like, what about the lottery money? I thought the lottery money all went to schools. How come we need, more taxes for schools? This is a great infographic that shows you where every single dollar comes into the state in tax revenue and where it all goes. So it's phenomenal. We will share it. Dig into it. It's one of my favorite things if you really want to know where tax dollars go, which I do as somebody who pays taxes and somebody who works in this job. All right. With that, like I said, it was a relatively light week. So we get to jump into good news from the district. First up, the Bowling Park Middle School sent an all-girls team to the first Tech Challenge Robotics World Competition in Houston, Texas. The team 16607, better known as the Midnight Creators, advanced to Worlds from the Michigan State Championship as a second place Inspire Award winner at the state championship and placed impressively against many older student groups in the international competition. So congrats, and always really, really proud to see these awesome robotics teams come out of our district and go on to do amazing things. Okay, next up, 8 Oakland County schools have been recognized for 15 years of Michigan Green Schools participation, which is especially important as we just celebrated Earth Day. Michigan Green Schools is a program overseen by the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. otherwise known as EAGLE, that assists schools statewide in achieving environmental and energy savings goals. Of the 8 Oakland County schools, 6 are from our district. State Senate District 13 is crushing this. That includes Beverly Elementary in Birmingham Public Schools, Pierce Elementary in Birmingham Public Schools, Lincoln Street Alternative High School in Birmingham Public Schools, North Hill Elementary in Rochester, Adams Elementary in Royal Oak, and Oak Ridge Elementary in Royal Oak. To receive designation as an official Michigan Green School each year, individual buildings must earn 10 or more points by participating in at least 2 activities from each of the 4 categories: recycling, energy, environmental protection, and miscellaneous. So there's a lot of other things that you can do to be green that falls into those categories. So congrats. Thank you to all of the schools who are doing that work, and I'm sure involving students in learning how to be more environmentally friendly and support our state and our environment. And we're proud to see such great representation from our district. Last but not least, as we are hopefully heading into some warmer weather, we wanted to share that outdoor live music is back at Hotel Royal Oak. This was something that they started doing, a silver lining of COVID, when we needed to find more activities that we could safely do outdoors. Hotel Royal Oak started hosting an outdoor concert series in their parking lot, and it was wonderful. The outdoor no-cover music event started last year at the hotel on 11 Mile. R&B soul group Laura Rain and the Caesars is set to perform at the first outdoor event on Saturday, May 7th. So go ahead, it's free. Get outside, enjoy yourself. And with that, we will move on into Q&A. So when we get to Q&A, we bring on Liz, our Director of District Services, joining us live from Lansing.
Lansing, yeah, my
Where's
kitchen or my
yeah,
dining
Royal
room.
Oak and Lansing covered here. All right, so Liz, what questions do we have up today?
Yeah, we have a couple from our submit your question form, and then I think a few coming in from comments still. But our first question is from Kim from Berkeley via our question form. What can we do to prevent the Secure My Vote initiative from being put in place? I'm concerned about the low wages of home. Oh, sorry, that's 2 questions. The first question is, what can we do to secure the My Vote initiative?
Got it. Okay, so this is just kind of a great entree into something we talked about last week or a few weeks ago, which is, if you are a Michigander, if you are in a district, you have seen a lot of people outside of post offices, grocery stores, public spaces, working to collect signatures from you on petition initiative drives. There are a lot of them. There are more than a dozen petition drives circulating this year. So first and foremost, to everybody, do not sign a petition that you have not read yourself. Don't feel pressured to sign it. A lot of them have names that sound very similar. Secure My Vote and Protect My Vote are 2 initiatives that are running simultaneously that do very, very different things. So the Secure My Vote petition initiative really mimics a lot of the language that we've seen in the Republican bills that have been put up to restrict voting access, to make it harder for people to vote. So you might be confused by the name Secure My Vote. It is actually the initiative that would add more barriers to people voting, when we have seen overwhelmingly in all of the audits of the 2020 election and prior that there was no fraud in the 2020 election. Our elections are secure. So education is the number one thing, making sure we know that you don't have to sign it. You don't have to sign a petition if you don't know about it. One of my top tips is just asking the petition circulator if there's a website where you can go home and learn information. Oftentimes, petition circulators are paid. Many times, there are circulators who are brought in from out of state. There are companies that do this work to go out and collect signatures. So you may be talking to somebody who might not even be doing it maliciously, but they might not even know what a petition does. So it's always best ask for more information, and do not feel like you have to sign anything. I have introduced legislation along with many of my other colleagues to help improve this process. I have a bill that would allow you to request that your signature be removed if, for example, you signed a petition, you went home, you learned, oh, that doesn't do what I thought it does. But right now, if you sign it, that is what goes forward in terms of getting petitions on the ballot or to the legislature to pass into law without the governor being able to veto them. So tell everybody, education is the most important thing we can do right now. Don't sign it if you haven't read it. ask for more information. And there's a great story on Bridge magazine that we will find and post a link to. That's like a running tracker of all of the petition drives that are circulating right now that will tell you what they are, who is backing them, what the support kind of strategy is, what the opposition is to it, so that you can be more informed and make decisions for yourself.
Yeah, I'll try and find that while you answer the next question. But as I zoomed through that, the first one, she had a second part of that, and said that they are also concerned about the low wages of home health aides here in the state of Michigan. Didn't know if you had any comments on that.
Oh, I am too, fundamentally. And then we've seen it exacerbated by the auto no fault law. So whether or not you have a home healthcare aid because of a catastrophic car accident or because you need it for many of the other reasons why you might need a home health aid, low pay is really, really concerning right now. I am just always very concerned about what professions we have chosen as important in this country. So, for example, engineering, product design, development, that is what I did professionally. And these are all incredibly important jobs. And a lot of these industries receive subsidies from the government to support that work. But we have really shown that in industries that are caretaking careers, namely teachers, childcare providers, in-home care aides, the pay is really low. And it is not a coincidence that these are careers that are primarily done by women. You know, women-dominated careers are much lower in pay than those who are not. Um, my hope now is that with the labor shortage, we're going to get to a place where we see that it is important to raise pay, but it's a really tricky issue when you're getting into caretaking because oftentimes the people who need that care, this isn't private industry. This is potentially, people like my grandmother, my uncle, or anybody who has an in-home healthcare aid as a family can't just turn on a spigot and afford to pay higher prices. So this is an area where I think it's really important that the market is not going to fix itself. We've seen this with childcare, that oftentimes the people who need childcare during the day are people who have jobs, who are in the middle class, who cannot be able to afford to pay more in childcare than they're bringing in wages. It just doesn't make economic sense. So I've been pleased to see in Michigan that we have expanded the amount that the state is paying into expanding access to childcare and home health care. There was a wage increase that was put in during the pandemic that has remained, but we've got to do a lot more work. So I share that concern. I wish there was a really easy, quick answer to it, but it's a real systemic issue that as we have more and more of our residents retiring, getting into retirement age, who are going to need in-home healthcare aides, it's something that we have to address that's critical to our state.
Okay, next question is from Katie from Birmingham via our question form. They say, I'm a parent of a transgender student. I am also part of a larger group of parents in the district called BPS Family Pride. We want to be able to support you in your efforts and make sure our kids have what they need to thrive in their homes and community. With the increase of anti-LGBTQ legislation going on, over 300 bills introduced nationally since January, we are invested in helping you to ensure that Michigan is a safe space for everyone. As a parent of a trans child, access to gender-affirming medical care is life-saving. What can we do to help? We want to help.
Katie, thank you I know we've talked before, and thank you for the question and reaching out. I am in the process of talking to a lot of other people who've been in this space a lot longer than I am, and to see what we can do to help and push back. Really, where I get so frustrated is that there has been a really malicious attempt to scapegoat and marginalize already marginalized kids when it doesn't help people either, right? Like if you are a resident who is concerned that healthcare costs are too high and the roads are fixed, the strategy from some of our colleagues right now is to convince you and make you so mad and hateful and angry towards somebody else that you might forget that they're not actually addressing your issues either. So my hope is that just really calling that what it is and blunting it will help make sure that the efforts to restrict the ability for you as a parent and your doctor and your family to do what is right for your family. Hopefully that takes some of the weight off, but I will have more to share as we go forward, because I do want to find ways to help for people who do want to get involved and help to have an outlet to do that in a way that is going to be really meaningful and impactful. Number one, I keep going back to contact your legislators. If this is not where, even if you are not the parent of a trans child, if you want your legislators to focus on the issues that impact you, like healthcare costs and fixing the roads and all of those things, tell them that this is not what they should be focused on, and they need to be focused on the issues that matter to their constituents, because it's really an effort that is manipulating and lying to people about what the priority is, and creating issues where there are one. So more to come, but really appreciate your work and for being so open about it. I know, especially now with all of the pressure and energy, I've been talking to LGBTQ friends over the past few weeks who've just said it's just so demoralizing and makes you want to retreat, and not kind of engage. But we need your voices and stories, because we love our families and communities, and you are a part of our community, and that is wonderful. So thank you, Katie, and we will have more to share very soon.
And I'm going to piggyback a question off of that in one of the comments, and you
Sure.
spoke about it in the very beginning of our coffee hour. But the issue of trans athletes, some people have concerns and say that it's unfair or whatever. So I didn't know if you wanted to touch on that topic.
Sure. Yeah, and I saw that kind of pop into the questions. There are people who have problems with males competing in girls' sports. So again, addressing this up front, the Michigan High School Athletic Association has a thorough process already in place for a student. And I want to really separate, these are kids. They're kids who want to play on sports teams with their friends. And it is less than 2 students in the entire state. There are 10 million people in this state. Less than 2 kids per year apply for this waiver, go through the process. I would encourage you to check out the Michigan High School Athletic Association's website for more information on this process. They have a process. It involves parents, schools. Everybody has to sign off on the waiver to allow for a child to play on the team that matches their gender identity. So it's already in place. It already works. People feel good about this process. I've heard feedback that, teammates are really supportive and teams are really supportive. So it happens with everybody's involvement. And that is something that I've been really frustrated by, is this kind of narrative that somehow parents and schools are at war with each other when they're not. These systems are already in place and it works together really well. I highlight my mom growing up. She was super active in my classroom and was a homeroom mom and went on field trips with us. So this works when everybody is a part of a community and works together. We already have that process, and I would encourage people to check that out. And then one of my colleagues, Senator Adam Ollier, we've been talking about this issue a lot, and he's like, look, sports are already, you have a competitive advantage if you just from genetics. I'm 5'6". I'm a terrible beach volleyball player. I'm just too short. It is what it is. Whether I'm a man or a woman, people have advantages and people have disadvantages. And what is so wonderful about sports is you learn competition and winning and losing with grace, and you learn how to interact with people who are different than you and work as a team despite your differences. And I think everybody should have the opportunity to do that. So I hear some of the concerns. I would challenge a little bit if really trying to understand where that concern has come from. Is this a concern? And I don't want to question anybody's intentions, right? But really, is this a concern that you held a year ago? Or is it a concern with the more that we've seen this push in media and from some of our colleagues that say this is the most important issue? I would challenge that a little bit, because I don't think it is. I think that this is a process. It has been working. It has been a non-issue that people feel works really, really well. And the High School Athletic Association wouldn't have responded and said that these bills are unnecessary if they felt otherwise.
Okay, on to the next question. Megan on Facebook from Clausen wants to know if you can touch on oral chemotherapy fairness here in the state of Michigan.
Sure, Megan, I know this is an issue that you are really passionate about, is making sure that, from an insurance level and from a doctor level, that we are treating oral chemotherapy treatments and covering it the same way that we do other chemotherapy treatments. It is something that I support, making sure that we have affordable and readily available treatments for people, and leaving medical decisions with doctors, and making sure that insurance supports that. I don't know that legislation has moved related to this, but we can certainly look into it and follow up with you offline if you want to shoot us an email.
Okay, and then next question. Donna on Facebook said, we need to make durable medical equipment such as CPAP machines available by shoring up American businesses that produce microchips that run them. The current shortage is causing serious issues for people who depend on them.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. I mean, talking about the supply chain, and this is something where I talk with Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin all the time, and she loves talking about the supply chain. This is really important for a lot of things. We saw during the pandemic the shortage of masks and gloves and PPE really suddenly highlighted how tenuous and fragile our supply chain is. So, yes, we are looking across the board at how can we encourage more manufacturing, not only in Michigan, but in the country, and also working with some of our colleagues on the federal level, making sure that we're not so reliant on one country, for example, for a portion of the supply chain. Because let's use Ukraine as an example right now. With the invasion of Ukraine, if we are dependent on that country for one really important aspect of a supply chain, that's been disrupted because of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, by Vladimir Putin. So I think we need to make sure that we have multiple options that we can turn on and off. And I know our federal colleagues are working on that, and also bringing a lot more of that manufacturing back to Michigan and back to the States. And we've got companies right here in our district that are being really creative and trying to figure out how to pivot and make new things. Cadillac Products, which is an auto supplier, pivoted during the pandemic to be able to make medical gowns. And I went and toured their facility, and that is just the ingenuity of this area, is pivoting on a dime to solve real issues as it relates to manufacturing. Because if you can manufacture one thing, you can manufacture other things. So it's exciting to see, and definitely more to come.
And outside of the very nice comments and a lot of support in the comments, I only see one question left. And that's from Patrick on Facebook, said, how do you feel about public schools being for the benefit of the public and society in general, and not for the benefit of just the parents?
Oh my God, huge support. Yes, public schools are for the benefit of the community, the state, everybody at it. I know that, especially right now with the petition drive and the effort to recreate the vouchers program, or create the vouchers program in Michigan. So right now it is unconstitutional. It's in the state constitution. No public dollars can go to private schools or institutions. And that's not to say that there isn't a wonderful place for all of the very excellent private and parochial schools that we have in our district. We have a lot of them. But public schools, I mean, this was something that we decided as a country, that every child should receive an education for the benefit of our country. So whether or not you have kids, I have a 1-year-old now, but I certainly paid my taxes and love to see kids going to school. Before I had a child, it's not just about my kid going to school. This is about making sure that we have people who grow up in our communities who are competent and caring and kind. This is our future workforce. So whether or not you have kids, our schools and the quality of schools is a direct contributor to all of our quality of life, because without them, we are not attracting talent, we are not attracting families, and our communities would rot. And we've seen that happen where the quality of education in schools are falling apart, and that has to be addressed. And we have to bring that up to a really high level, because it benefits everybody. It is a public good.
And then we actually just got two last questions. One from Melody Macy, a familiar name.
Hello.
Said, love the budget graphic. Is there anything in particular in these budget bills that you need constituent voices to speak up about?
Oh man, Melanie, I would love if everybody had time to go through all of the budget bills line by line, but we don't. We recognize that that is not, that's not a fair ask of people. But if there's something that And for those who don't know, Melanie Macy is a Royal Oak City Commissioner. So if there is something in the budget that municipalities would like to ask for to support local communities, we keep a running list in our office of what those asks are. I would rather we ask for something in the budget and not get it than not ask and not know if we might get it or not. We're not going to get it if we don't ask. And then for kind of any residents, I would say check out the budget graphic. And then if there are things that are important to you on kind of a broader scale, just let us know, because we want to know that we're advocating in the right way for you. So if you are somebody like Patrick, who I'm going to assume believes that school is a public good and we need to invest in our public schools, just let us know that, and we'll continue to advocate in the way that we do. But yeah, I would encourage municipalities, check it out. If there's a specific kind of issue or group or organization that you feel strongly about supporting, let us know. Like I said, we keep a running list that we take to our appropriations chairs to advocate on behalf of our constituents. But we will post more about the budget process, because there's so much that goes into, as you can imagine, a $70 billion-ish budget for 10 million people. And we'd love for your feedback and for paying attention to it. And we'll try to make it as accessible as possible. The Michigan League for Public Policy put out a pretty cool, like, animated video on how the budget process works. So we might put that into our next e-news, which is a good plug. If you haven't signed up for our email newsletter, to go to our website and sign up for it. And you can get all of this cool information, and the writers of it are phenomenal.
So it's a pretty good e-news. I don't know. Someone works really hard on it.
Yeah.
I said last question 2 questions ago, so this is the last question I see currently. Jane says, what are your thoughts about the unfolding situation around the Royal Oak Main Art Theater?
Jane, that's a great question. So I have been looking at, and if it makes sense for the city, I know there was legislation passed to create incentives for historic preservation. That is something that I supported in the legislature. It was sponsored by Wayne Schmidt out of not the Upper Peninsula, but Northern Michigan, in the Traverse City area. And I get an owner's frustration with making sure that owning a building is a business, and you want to make sure that it is profitable. But there is also something really, really powerful about preserving the character of communities and historic properties. So I'm going to look into that and send it to the city to see if that's something that might be of interest. And we have to make the best decision possible. I was really sad. I shared when it closed, really, really sad to see it close. Just as a fun note, my husband was in a movie once called Revenge of the Electric Car, and they had the debut of the film at the Royal Oak Main Art Theater. So, the brief moment where he was a movie star was highlighted at the Main Art Theater.
That's a very fitting title for Ray to be an actor in.
Yeah.
So that's all the questions I see, but your mom is in the comments. So hello, Mallory's mom.
And thanks everybody else for tuning in. And again, for all of the feedback over the past few weeks, which is not the feedback that we thought we would have, but it's been really overwhelming and wonderful. And now the challenge is where do we go from here? How do we make sure other people's voices are elevated, particularly those who are marginalized, whose voices aren't heard often enough? And making sure that we just say loud and clear that we can debate tax policy, but hate won't win.
Hate won't win.
All right, Liz, I'm going to let you go and wrap it up. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you have a very safe and wonderful weekend as we head into May. My gosh, I can't believe how this happened. And we will see you next time.